The next sense that I'd like to move on to and ask you about, you sent me some interesting choices for this one, is the sense of taste. And I'm going to start with one which I have to say I don't understand at all, uh, but that's just me. And it is the taste of celery.
Mm. Now, I've got celery has a special place in my heart because I used to hate celery. I mean, it makes as a kid, it made me gag. There was if I was eating, they used to do these vegetable pasties because I've been veggie most of my life, and you'd have a bite and then you go, oh, there's a bit of celery. There's a bit of celery in that, like tiny bit of celery would ruin any vegetarian dish for me. It was like the tiniest hint of it. It seemed to overpower everything else, and I hated it. And it was the one thing I could, if you gave me food, I would try and be polite, but I could not eat celery. Anyway, then I started meditating in my 20s, and I in this book written by my meditation teacher was a wonderful passage on the senses, training the senses, and basically his thesis is that the senses are just your likes and dislikes are just habits, and however they formed, they're just habits of your mind. In a way, they're a trick of your mind, because a flavor is just a flavor. It is not intrinsically, unless it's poison, it is not intrinsically neither good nor bad. Some people love celery, some people hate it. And he said, choose a dish you hate and try eating it and see what you think when you just go, it's just a flavor. So I went to a cafe in London and I went, do you do celery salad? And they went, we do. I said, I'm gonna have a celery salad, please. And I started eating the celery and I started going, oh God, it's celery. And then I just started going, what's it? What is it? What does it taste of? I'm thinking it's a bit peppery. It's it's definitely savory. And the more I analyzed it, the more I was just thinking, it's just a flavor. It's just a flavor. And I remember thinking, and I ate the whole thing. And I remember thinking, and I didn't love it, but I remember thinking, I walked out of there on cloud nine because I just thought, I'm free. Because it's just a thing. It's like being hot or cold or all sorts of things. If you've got an itch and you go, oh, I've got to scratch that itch. But if you stop and just go, what is that itch? What does it feel like? Often it'll just literally go away. And we're not imagining them, but what does it say? There's a quote that says, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And now I'll often have celery. I'll often ask for celery and I'll often have it. Or if it's in a salad, I will make sure I eat every bit of it, because it's never going to be my favorite thing. Like I go, ooh, I love celery. But it's a thing that when I taste it, I always remember that I'm free and I love it.
The taste of freedom, quite literally. That is amazing. I like that. That is very cool. Your second choice, I can relate to half of it. I can't relate to the second half of it, which is you like the taste of good coffee, preferably in a cafe in Italy.
Yeah, because nothing. Ever since I've been quite young, I've never been a pub person really. I have friends who will go to the pub on their own with a paper and get a pint, and that's their favorite thing in the world. And my equivalent of that is going to a really nice cafe and having really good coffee, preferably, if it's outside, that makes it even more special. And in a beautiful place, and a paper or a good book. And it feels so indulgent because you're not doing it for anyone else but yourself. And when I think when we got married, actually, was the first time we went to Italy on our honeymoon. And Charlotte would go off for an explore sometimes, and I would sit in a cafe in a beautiful little square in an incredibly beautiful little town in the middle of nowhere in Italy. And it's just joyous. I mean, in lots of hot countries, hot places, you can sit and you just look at the world and you sip the coffee, the beautiful, particularly the Italians know how to make a beautiful little cappuccino or espresso. And it's only small, but that's how it should be. And you just savor every drop. And it makes your brain start clicking in a slightly different way. And you look around and it's just the smells and, you know, the old geezers with their little espressos, you know, just chatting to each other, who seem to do that all day in little Italian towns. And yeah, something incredibly delicious about the coffee and about the way it makes you feel and about feeling like you could be in that kind of place, even if you're in a shopping center somewhere.
And do you have a go-to coffee? Is there a particular one that you order?
So nowadays it's a flat white because I like strong coffee. I don't like gallons of milk. So in the old days, I used to spend hours with people going, cappuccino, but please not in a big mug, just in a small mug, a small. Could you have a small cup, not the one you normally use? Yeah, and don't fill it. No, stop with the milk. Just less milk. And now I just have to go. I have a flat white because they come in a small cup. Perfect. So the inventor, whoever invented the flat white, is genius because that helps a lot. See, if you go to Italy and you ask for cappuccino, you get a proper cappuccino in a small cup, beautifully made, as they've always made it. And I sometimes in English places where they serve you it in like in a huge mug, much bigger than that. And I'll go, have you ever been to Italy? Do you know what a cappuccino is? It's not that, mate. But it would be churlish, really. So
yeah, that's fair enough. And so have you ever argued about your third choice, because you will know more about this than most people, masala dosa and sambar sauce from South India?
yes, so my family's from South India, from Madras. It's called Chennai now. So when I was little, we never went to a normal Indian restaurant. We didn't go. I mean, you know, we weren't the richest family in the world, so you didn't really go out to eat in the 70s very much. But if we did, with my extended family, we would go to a South Indian restaurant. And at the time in London, they're still pretty rare. There was one in Tooting called the Sri Krishna, and it was really famous. And we would have to drive. We lived in Croydon, so we had to drive probably nearly an hour to get there. South Indian food it uses slightly different spices, but it also has these kind of rice pancakes, quite big, called dosas, and they're often filled with potato, and they're really different. You would never get them in a North Indian restaurant, because of course India is the size of Europe, so you know the cuisine changes, and so you only get them there. So I would only ever have them in this restaurant. And then there was a new restaurant open in Croydon, and we'd go to that. And they serve it with sambar sauce, and it's this kind of lentil sauce that goes on it. It's incredibly specific. It doesn't taste like anything else in Indian food. And if I see a South Indian restaurant, it will be very rare that I don't mark it and go, I'm going to go there and get a dosa. Because it reminds me of being a little kid. It reminds me of my family, my grandparents, my aunties and uncles. And it reminds me that I'm from a place that is not the place I grew up in. And even here, I'm in a hotel room at the moment. I'm filming in a town called Reading, and I don't know Reading. And I went walking around yesterday, and I found a place called Flavors of Madras. And guess what? It was a South Indian restaurant. I looked and I thought, South Indian. That night, I went back, had a dosa. They had quite a few dosas on the menu, which was wonderful. So many, in fact, that I photographed it and sent it to my sister and my mum to go, look at this for a dosa menu. The exact words I used in the day. That was just last night, by a weird coincidence. So it's a very special thing. And what I love is that I've passed it on to my kids, who really have virtually no Indian culture, because I don't have much, and they grew up here, you know, with me and my wife's half Irish, half English. So, but they know all about South Indian food. And when my son went to university, he rang me quite early on and went, "There's a South Indian. I'm going to take my girlfriend for a dosa." And I said, "Brilliant. Show her what your culture's about." So that is why it's very special to me.
And yeah, you took me to that one in Tooting because you lived in Tooting. And did you take Sid, the actor? I mean, he's Sid to you and me, but the actor Alexander Siddig. Did you take him there? You must have done.
I definitely took him there, yeah, because we were unemployed actors. We had a lot of time on our hands. So we would go and, I'll take you to the South Indian. So yeah, I did.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that well, actually. So of those three, so the masala dosa with sambar sauce from South India in a South Indian restaurant is number one choice. Number two choice is the good coffee, preferably in a cafe in Italy. And the third one is celery. Now, of those, which do you at home think is Paul's favourite sense of taste?